Hello all, welcome to the Citation Mustang Garmin G1000 tutorials. Part 8 VOR 1.4 approach, but the VOR only this time. On this episode 8 we will fly this VOR approach with the VOR only, so with no help of the GPS FMS. We start by flying from NASMO to ICT, the initial approach fix of the VOR 1.4 approach. From there we're going to fly a procedure turn back to ICT, but now as a final approach fix, and fly the rest of the approach to the runway of 14 at Wichita, Kansas. On the approach plate you can see the VOR, actually it's a VORTAC, ICT, which is the initial approach fix and the final approach fix of this VOR approach. After the initial approach fix we can descend to 3600 during our procedure turn. After the procedure turn in our inbound track we can descend down initially to 3100 back to the VORTAC. After the final approach fix we can descend down to UGOV, which is at 2220 feet. If there is no positive navigation identification of UGOV, we have to arrest our minimum descent altitude to 2220, as you can see here on the S14. But if we can make a positive navigational identification of UGOV, our minimum descent altitude is lowered to 1760 feet. Here you can see the flight plan and the visual on the multifunction display. On the primary flight display you can see us now flying from NASMO to ICT, the initial approach fix of the VOR 1.4. We are at 4000 feet and we know that after crossing ICT we can descend down to 3600. In the inset map you can see that the track is magenta, but we will only use this as a reference. We're also flying in heading mode and the VOR nav frequency will be changed to nav2 shortly. You can see that it is already identified as 113.8 on the left side of the simulator. To do this, we depress the course knob to center the VOR2 needles. That will give us our direct track to ICT. Then we depress nav to switch from heading to nav. Here we check that our nav frequency is 113.8 ICT. We reduce our airspeed to 180, and when we have 180 we bring the flaps down to 15 degrees. We set our heading bug to a heading of 299 as a reference, and then we change the course knob of the VOR2 to 299. The aircraft is now turning to the outbound leg before it starts the procedure turn. Turn to a heading of 299 on the 299 radial from ICT. Now we are on the outbound radial of 299. We can descend down to 3600 feet. As we are established on the 299 degree radial, we will set our heading bug to 254, which is the first part of the procedure turn. This will be done with heading, so we have to change from VOR to heading because there is of course no radial from ICT for this procedure turn. Here you can see we're turning to 254 degrees, the first part of the procedure turn. At the same time we are descending to 3600 feet. On the first part of the procedure turn we do our 5 T's, or actually 6 T's. turn to a heading of 254, time for 1 minute, twist nav 2 to 199 towards ICT as the final approach fix. Toggle, no toggle, we stay in heading mode, and talk, you are on the procedure turn outbound on the VOR 14. We set our altitude preselect to 3100, but we can only go to 3100 when we are on the inbound track towards ICT, but now as the final approach fix. We will stay in this heading mode also for the reversal on 074 heading until we can join the inbound back to ICT as the final approach fix on a track of 119. That time we can re-engage nav 2. Here we can turn to a heading of 074, which is the second part of the procedure turn, to intercept the inbound towards ICT. Here we can do our 6Ts again. Turn to a heading 074, time approximately 1 minute. Twist, we already twisted to 119. Throttle, we're flying at 180 knots and we should be at 3600. Toggle, we will toggle to the VOR shortly, and talk, we are procedure turn inbound. Here we check that our nav frequency is 113.8 ICT. Here you can see Yukov at 2220. We can descend down to 2220 after we crossed ICT as the final approach fix. You can see here that 2220 is the minimum descent altitude. But if we can make a positive navigational identification of Yukov, our minimum descent altitude is lowered to 1760 feet. When the VOR2 is indicating that we are on the 299 radial towards ICT, with a heading of 119 towards the 119 radial, we can descend down to 3100. Here we check our minimums again. We set our inbound track with the heading bug. Here you can see Yukov at 2220. We can descend down to 2220 after we crossed ICT as the final approach fix. We reached 3100 feet and we will remain here until we are crossing ICT as the final approach fix. We set our altitude preselect to 2300 since we cannot set it to 2220. You can see here that 2220 is the minimum descent altitude, but if we can make a positive navigational identification of Yukov, our minimum descent altitude is lowered to 1760 feet. We can navigational identify Yukov. Here you can see it. It's 5 nautical miles from ICT. Here is the VOR final approach fix, and we put our gear down and we slow down to 140 knots. Now we can also descend down to 2220. We will reach 2220 well before Yukov, but we have to stay there until we cross Yukov. Here we reach 2300 and we stay here until we reach Yukov. Now we can set our minimum descent altitude of 1760 feet in the altitude preselector. And here's Yukov. We can descend now to 1760 feet. Three miles out, bring the flaps to 30 and reduce the airspeed to VREV+. We set our airspeed pre-select at 170 knots for a missed approach. We have a stabilized approach. Here's 500, so we do our mental checks. Gear down, lock 3 in the green, flaps 30, yaw damper off, the pilot off, we leave them on. Missed approach altitude set, which is not done yet, because here are our minimums. And when we reach our minimums, we're going to set our missed approach altitude, which is initially 3000. And we're clear to land. Here you can see the 2220 at Yukov and the missed approach altitude. Now you can see that 8.6 nautical miles from ICT is where our missed approach point lies. You can see that in the nav 2 on the bottom of the screen. There's 8.3, 8.4, 8.5 and 8.6. So toga, vertical speed up, flaps 15, positive rate, gear up, 400, flaps up, suspend off, CDI and nav, GPS is green, and check the FMS. 700 autopilot on. And climb thrust, and we tell ATC that we do the missed as published, and we're going over to approach and tell them the same. Thanks for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this episode, and perhaps until next time. Bye bye.